Iran warns the U.S. that any ground invasion could trigger fierce resistance and turn into a bloody and costly military campaign. Iran warns the U.S. that any ground invasion could trigger fierce resistance and turn into a bloody and costly military campaign. Iran sends a stark message to America. Any attempt to invade its territory will be met with fierce resistance and come at its own peril. Did Tehran use the lull in fighting to rearm, rebuild its military capabilities, and prepare for the possibility of another major conflict? Could Iran now be better prepared for a renewed conflict than at any other point since the fighting began? Iran's army warned it would adopt what it called new strategies if U.S. strikes on targets in southern Iran continue in the coming days. Army spokesperson Akraminia said continued U.S. attacks had pushed the conflict into what he described as a new phase of the confrontation. Akraminia said Iran's retaliatory military operations would continue for as long as American strikes against Iranian targets persisted. He added that Iran had already prepared new military scenarios aimed at deterring any further U.S. operations against the country. Akraminia said, and I quote, "New scenarios have been anticipated and worked on, and we will definitely act in a new way to deter the enemy from continuing the war. We took full advantage of the ceasefire opportunity to improve our situation and combat capability. Today, we are better prepared than in the past. We do not consider any action by the enemy to be impossible or unlikely. For this reason, we have enhanced our preparations for any scenario. If the enemy invades via land routes, its vulnerability will certainly be much greater than air and missile attacks. Ground operations provide many opportunities to damage and inflict more casualties on the enemy, and our effectiveness and efficiency will certainly be much higher in this area." Unquote. According to the spokesperson, Tehran has actively prepared for the possibility of a future U.S. ground invasion rather than ruling out such a scenario. The warning came as tensions remained high following continued U.S. military operations and repeated Iranian threats of further retaliation. The United States and Saudi Arabia announced a historic civilian nuclear cooperation agreement on July 22. The Trump administration says the deal marks a major step towards strengthening long-term strategic ties with Riyadh, according to Al Jazeera. Washington describes the agreement as a strategic partnership focused on energy security and regional cooperation. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said, and I quote, "These agreements reflect our two nations' shared commitment to strengthening U.S.-Saudi commercial relations, delivering prosperity at home and security to our allies abroad. Rest assured, these agreements uphold the highest standards of nuclear safety and non-proliferation while relying on the world's best nuclear technology and scientists, designed right here in the United States." Unquote. The multi-billion-dollar agreement will now be submitted to the U.S. Congress for review, according to Al Jazeera. American companies are expected to provide Saudi Arabia with advanced civilian nuclear technology under the agreement. The partnership is structured under Section 123 agreement of the U.S. Atomic Energy Act. Officials say the pact also includes safeguards designed to ensure peaceful civilian nuclear cooperation. Washington maintains that the agreement fully complies with strict nuclear safety and non-proliferation standards. Reports suggest the agreement could eventually allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium on its own soil. The U.S. Energy Department has not confirmed whether uranium enrichment is included in the final arrangement. Experts note that uranium enrichment can fuel civilian reactors, but can also be used in nuclear weapons programs. If enrichment rights are included, the issue is expected to face intense scrutiny in the U.S. Congress. The enrichment question is likely to become the most closely watched element of the entire agreement. The agreement comes as military confrontation between the United States and Iran continues to escalate. President Trump has repeatedly insisted that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapons capability. The Saudi nuclear agreement is expected to spark fresh debate over Washington's long-term strategy in the Middle East. President Donald Trump has approved a landmark 30-year civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia, according to an AP report. The proposed agreement could allow Saudi Arabia to develop a domestic uranium enrichment capability for its civilian nuclear energy program. Reports said the deal would place American companies at the center of Saudi Arabia's long-term nuclear development efforts. The proposal also includes a joint US-Saudi study on building a uranium enrichment facility inside the kingdom. The deal is expected to be submitted to the US Congress, where lawmakers are likely to raise concerns over nuclear proliferation. According to the Wall Street Journal, the agreement is not expected to include the IAEA's additional protocol for enhanced nuclear inspections. The decision comes as Washington continues its broader campaign to curb Iran's nuclear program and regional influence. Experts have warned that allowing Saudi uranium enrichment could create a future pathway toward a potential nuclear weapons capability. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has previously said Saudi Arabia would match Iran if Tehran were to acquire a nuclear bomb. The proposed agreement differs from the earlier UAE-United States nuclear deal, which prohibited uranium enrichment and set a stricter non-proliferation benchmark. Donald Trump has ordered a 12th consecutive night of US airstrikes against Iran, signaling that Washington has no intention of easing military pressure. The latest wave of attacks marks another major escalation as missiles and warplanes continue striking targets across Iran. US Central Command says the campaign is focused on reducing Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. US Central Command statement read, and I quote, "At 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, US forces began launching more strikes against Iranian military targets at the Commander-in-Chief's direction. The mission will continue to further degrade Iran's ability to threaten civilian mariners and commercial vessels transiting regional waters," unquote. At 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on July 22nd, US Central Command, CENTCOM, forces completed another round of strikes against Iran for the 12th consecutive night. US forces struck Iranian military targets including maritime capabilities, missile and drone storage facilities, coastal surveillance sites, and air defense assets. The strikes further degrade Iran's ability to attack civilian mariners and commercial vessels. This month, American forces have targeted dozens of Iranian military sites on land while resuming a blockade against Iran at sea. As of today, CENTCOM has redirected 9 commercial vessels and disabled one to prevent ships from entering or departing Iranian ports. More than 50,000 US service members are operating across the Middle East and remain highly vigilant, focused, lethal, and ready, unquote. Fresh explosions have been reported around Iran's Bushehr region as Iranian media accuses the United States of expanding its campaign. Blasts were also reported near Avaz, while explosions echoed through Sirik in southern Iran. Iranian media says areas near the Shalamcher border crossing with Iraq also came under attack. According to Press TV, the United States struck a rest area used by Iranian police officers near the crossing. Iranian reports claim 3 people were killed in the strike at the Shalamcher border crossing.